Happy Monday. I hope you guys are all doing well. Oh, my hair. Okay, so this video is going to be about solitude, and I briefly want to share with you guys about my journey of finding solitude. And my best friend and I are actually working together on creating tips of the subject to share with you guys. And I also have a couple of questions to ask you guys afterwards. So yeah, okay, so I believe that there are two types of solitude. One of them is external and the other one is internal. And I will explain to you guys what that means as I share my story. So I was in a relationship for 5 years, and in this relationship I was with my partner from high school till college, or all throughout college. And the last year of our relationship, we had really grown in different ways, and we had pretty much grown apart. And I had this strong gut feeling, or how I like to call it, a strong whisper in my heart to seek solitude. And it scared me so much, but I decided to seek it, and we separated. So when we separated, I was super committed to learn how to be alone and learn how to do things on my own. So at the time too, I had just graduated university, so I had so much time on my hands, and I was also tapping into some of my passions. So I started to do things on my own, and that's external solitude. So I started to go hiking by myself. I started to go see jazz bands play at a bar by myself. I started to go to coffee shops by myself. And another thing that I was also super curious about was traveling by myself. So after we broke up, I booked a ticket to Cancun and went traveling by myself. And that trip also taught me a lot about solitude and about myself. So I was pretty much committed to seeking external solitude and learning how to do things on my own, and learning how to have fun by myself, basically, and not needing a partner to be there or someone to be there to have fun. One thing that I was not learning though was internal solitude, and by that I mean that at the time I felt that I wasn't worthy or that I wasn't enough, and I used the dating scene to fulfill a lot of my insecurities. And I also had some fears here and there, so I would use the dating scene to fulfill all of my insecurities and some of my fears. And that was like a up and down journey until I got into another relationship. But before I got into this relationship, I had another strong gut feeling, or a strong whisper in my heart to move abroad and to move to Vietnam. But I was already afraid of being alone, and I wasn't willing to admit it at the time, but I was super afraid of being alone, and that's how the dating scene fulfilled that. But going to Vietnam by myself was like a whole other like solitude thing that I was super terrified of. But anyways, I got into this relationship and I hit rock bottom. And in this relationship, I started to lose myself, and I started to lose a lot of my friends, and my family wasn't talking to me, and I was not doing the things that I wanted to do, and I was afraid of just following the whispers in my heart and really questioning who I was and how I had to change who I was in this relationship. But I also almost got married, so that was kind of like the boiling point of like I needed to get out. So I ended up leaving the relationship, and once I left the relationship, I became super hyper aware of just like being aware of my own insecurities and my own fears, and how I was using the dating scene to fulfill all of it. And not only that, I actually started to admit my fear of like being alone and how desperate I was to fulfill that fear and my own insecurities. And I became super reflective too, as like, what just happened? Like, how did I get there? What am I doing? Like, how am I like using the dating scene in a sense to fulfill my insecurities of not being enough or not feeling worthy, and my fear of being alone. So that was so after that relationship, I learned how to be internally alone, or I learned how to seek internal solitude. And not only that, like after that relationship, a couple months later, I went to this convention that influenced me to quit my job. So I became unemployed, and I was at home most of the time, kind of like what we're doing now. And I really used that time to question all of these things and to really find my own worthiness and my own feeling enough coming from inside of myself. Because also at the time during the dating scene, I would really seek approval and validation from other people and from the dating scene to kind of like give me that validation or of like who I am as a person in a sense. So yeah, anyways, in those couple of months, or in that whole like chapter of my life, I became committed of like learning and finding this own power that we actually all have within ourselves, of like feeling enough, feeling lovable, feeling like we're worthy, and feeling that we're beautiful, and just finding that own power within myself. So when I went to Vietnam, yeah, the journey continued, you know, the journey totally continued on but learning more of that power within myself. And when I went to Vietnam, it also became like this thing of like both of these lessons of like external solitude and internal solitude like coming in together in a sense as like practice. So going to Vietnam, it kind of gave me more of a conviction of who I am, and not only of like who I am, but also being in that solitude and being okay with it and loving it and totally loving it. After that second relationship, and even more so when I went to Vietnam, I committed more to myself of being aware of like my own fears and being aware of my own insecurities as much as I can, and admitting to how I feel as much as I can. But yeah, so these are the ways that I found solitude, external solitude and internal solitude, in both of those relationships, or the aftermath of both of those relationships, and even my trip to Vietnam. So yeah, so with that, I want to ask you guys the question of, what does solitude mean to you? And do any of you guys relate to my story? And if you guys have a similar story, or if you guys want to share anything with me, by all means, send me a message. I would love to hear your experience or your story of how you found solitude. And like I said, my best friend and I are currently working on putting some tips together relating to solitude. So yeah, stay tuned. Okay, have a great Monday. Bye.